Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
حي على الصلاة.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
حي على الصلاة.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
I rise giving all praise to the Most High God Allah, and the highest of honors to His Prophet Noble Drew Ali, Islam. I'd like to give honors to the forerunner, the harbinger, purity made manifest, Marcus Mosiah Garvey. I'd like to give honors to all Moors doing the work of the Prophet, all members of the Moor Science Temple of America, especially subordinate temple number 19 here in Atlanta, Georgia. I'd like to give honors to the office of the Grand Governor, office of the Lieutenant Grand Governor, office of the Chairman, office of the Secretary, all officers here at the Moor Science Temple of America, Vanguard staff, Hills and Bays of the Groves, all of our guests that are with us this evening. So tonight we're just going to talk some basics. Let's go to chapter 47 of the Holy Quran of the Moor Science Temple of America. And we're going to not be long in light. Let's just draw from two verses, 16 and 17. Through sin and disobedience, every nation has suffered slavery, due to the fact that they honored not the creed and principles of their forefathers. That is why the nationality of the Moors was taken away from them in 1774, and the word Negro, black, and colored was given to the Asiatics of America who are of Moorish descent, because they honored not the principles of their mother and father, and strayed after the gods of Europe, of whom they knew nothing. So when we go out into the world, what do we see, amongst our brothers and sisters? What do we see when we look out into the streets? I can tell you what I see. I see good and bad. Many times, I see despair. We see things happening. We see crime happening, especially here in Atlanta. Recently, Atlanta's been trending 105 homicides annually, over 2,000 robberies annually, over 3,000 aggravated assaults annually, 4,781 burglaries annually, 16,493 theft or larceny cases annually, 4,282 cars stolen annually. And this is the crime, this is decreased. This is due to a decrease of 27%. So things, conditions have gotten a little bit better because crime rate has declined 27%. But we see heart disease. We see diabetes. We see cases of mental illness. We see cases of addiction. The abortion rate is 12 per 1,000. And that's 12 abortions per 1,000 women. And that's among so-called black. But like we said, it's not all bad, because we have some of us who are successful, who live successful and productive lives. We have many doctors, we have many lawyers, we have many engineers, teachers, businessmen and women, chefs, blue collar, white collar, people who are trying to be responsible and be industrious. We have many of those too. But what is the problem with that? We'll start with something basic. The prophet says, so often our various journalists find trouble in selecting the proper name for the Moorish American. So how does this connect? Well, the prophet also said that in terms of segregation, we fought the Southerner for all these great misuses. But I've traveled in the South and I've experienced conditions there, and it is the works of my people, continuing to practice the things which bring dishonor, disgrace, and disrespect to any nation that lives the life. So the prophet has come to redeem us from mental slavery, which we have now. And that is the condition of our people. Mental slavery. And we know that it is a sin to cling to the names and principles that delude to slavery. So what are some of these names? What are some of the names that journalists give to Moorish Americans? What are some of the names that we allow others to bestow on us? Well, there's Negro, there's black, there's colored, there's African American, and we can go on and on and on. But it's our mental slavery which is causing us to cling to these principles and to cling to these names. We're under mental slavery. What did, we've seen roots and there's some truth in that. One thing is when the slave captors, when they caught you, what is one of the first things that they made you do? They made you stop using your name. I mean, we have some people who take the stance, well, I think it was a Shakespeare, what's in the name? A rose called by any other name would still smell as sweet. But things are not so sweet for the Moorish Americans right now as we look at the conditions of our people. So I'm going to quickly read a couple things, and then we'll yield the floor. The first thing is we're going to look at the Piscean text at 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 14. And it reads, "If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin and will heal their land." So that covenant there is reiterated with the prophet. To honor thy mother and thy father, that thy days may be long upon the earth land which the Lord thy God has given thee. So when we cling to names and principles that delude to slavery, there is no inheritance. There is no forgiveness of sin. There is no healing of the land. There's only the conditions that we have going on today. Slavery ended in 1865 with the congressional ratification of the 13th Amendment. At that time, we were to give back all of the names and marks that were given to us. There's a book written by Charles Carroll, and I just want to share with you a couple of pages out of here. We'll read the cover. The Negro, a beast, or in the image of God. The reasoner of the age, the revelator of the century, the Bible as it is, the Negro and his relation to the human family, the Negro a beast, but created with articulate speech and hands, that he may be of service to his master, the white man. The Negro, not the son of Ham, neither can it be proven by the Bible. And the argument of the theologian who would claim such melts to mist before the thunderous and convincing arguments of this masterful book by Charles Carroll, who has spent 15 years of his life and $20,000 in its compilation, published by American Book and Bible House, St. Louis, Missouri, 1900. So here we have some of that European psychology that the prophet was talking about. In 1900, we have someone from the European nations who spent 15 years of his life and $20,000 of his own money, and that's a lot back in 1900, to prove that the so-called Negro is a beast and not the son of God or the son of Ham. But what does the prophet tell us? I mean, he's right. The Negro is not the son of God or in the image of God. The Negro is a beast. What does the prophet tell us about a Negro? The Negro is a four-legged animal. What does he tell us about black? He tells us that black, according to science, means death. But can a man be a Negro, black or colored? No. He's made in the image and the likeness of God Allah. So where does the mental slavery come in? The mental slavery comes in the acceptance of these marks. So the Bible cannot prove that the Negro is the son of Ham, but what does the Bible prove? The Bible proves that the ancient Moabites and the ancient Canaanites are descended from the Most High. And the Moorish Americans are the descendants of the Moabites and Canaanites who inhabited the northwest shores of Africa. This is what we must be telling our people out here in these streets, who are still under the mental slavery of the Negro. Now, just to share a little bit of what the inside of the text is saying. So it's talking about something called the theory of descent. Thus, we find that the theory of descent, so far from being a product of the Christian era, was an old, demoralizing, degrading theory at the advent of our Savior. And that so far from its having been first outlined by Linnaeus or Lamarck or Blumenbach or to whomsoever belongs the discredit, and more recently systematized and elaborated by Darwin and his disciples, it actually antedates the Christian era thousands of years. It was the pernicious influence of this atheistic theory which was advocated by the idolatrous authors who lived and taught prior to the advent of the Savior, which so demoralized and degraded man and removed him so far from his God as to necessitate the sacrifice of the Son of God to redeem him. Upon the revival of learning in modern time, the theory of evolution was again systematized and is now as universally disseminated among men as it was in ancient time. But who are they, and to who and to what school do they belong? Who would teach us that man is merely an animal and must take his position in the zoological system with the rest of the animals, that man is simply a highly developed species of ape, the human species, and that this human species of ape is divisible into 5 races of men: the Negro, the Malay, the Indian, the Mongolian, and the Caucasian. And later on, it goes on to talk about how Blumenbach and Linnaeus assigned colors to these different so-called races of men. And to the Negro was given the term black. And they also later on identify the Indian as so-called black. So our people are accepting the terms from people who don't even believe in the Creator. We're allowing schools of thought, we're allowing atheists to name us. So what does that make us? The Declaration of Independence gives rights, or it talks about rights endowed by the Creator. So if you don't believe in the Creator, you don't have any rights. And if you let those that don't believe in the Creator to name you and you cling to those names, then you have no rights. Another interesting thing that it says is that the yellow tawny Hottentots live side by side with the black Kafirs. The ancient Indians of California in the latitude of 42 degrees were as black as the Negroes of Guinea, while in Mexico were tribes of an olive or reddish complexion relatively light. So in the same text where it's telling you that you're a Negro and we're agreeing to it, it's also telling us that we were the first ones here. All it takes for our people is for us to share knowledge and to share the words of the prophet and to study, study, study. So with that, I'll leave you as I came.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
حي على الصلاة
Allahu Akbar.